morning, everyone, and welcome to Stanislaus State's Science Week. My name is Harmanpreet Kaur.
And I'm Chelsea. We're part of the Science in Our Community team here at Stan State.
Stanislaus State is pleased to provide the community with opportunities to learn by engaging in live activities and recorded activities that will be shared through this week on Zoom and on our Science in Our Community YouTube channel.
Before we start, please note that this event is being recorded and we'd like to ask you to stay muted unless you're called upon. And additionally, to keep this activity fun for all, please only use the chat to answer or ask questions. Thank you.
And now it's my pleasure to introduce our activity, Pressing Plant Specimens, with Dr. Gardner and his team.
Hi. Thanks for the introduction, Harmanpreet and Chelsea. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Thanks for joining us. My name is Andrew Gardner, and I'm a professor of botany here at Stanislaus State. I moved here about 6 years ago, and I actually, when I was in elementary or middle school, I lived in Green Bay, Wisconsin. And so I went to a school called Lenoy Elementary School. It was just barely getting nice this time of year. So I'm really grateful that I live here in a nice, beautiful climate. With me today are a team of students that work with me and others on all kinds of plant-related activities. We've got, I'm here with Lynn.
Hi.
Laura.
Hi.
And Harman.
Hello.
And we work together here at Stan State, and we're gonna kind of work you through this activity to teach you all about plant specimens. And we're actually in right now our herbarium. Herbarium is a museum of plant specimens, like a library. And one of the nice things about plant specimens is that they can be made flat. So we'll talk about that. We have this library of plant specimens that we use for all different kinds of purposes, and we'll talk more about that as we work through the activity. We're also really lucky because we've digitized our specimens. I'll explain the benefits of that also. Specimens are collected samples, and it can be a sample of a plant, an animal, or an insect, or even a fungus or a rock. So we've briefly introduced ourselves, and what we'd like you to do now is just to think a little bit about who you are and introduce yourselves. So we'd like people maybe to share in the chat who you are, how old you are, and what school you go to. Feel free to share as whole classes or individuals. We'd love to hear more. 6th grade at Dennis Earl, 3rd grade at Julian Elementary, 4th graders from Maderos, 5th and 6th graders, 11-year-olds in 5th grade, whoop whoop, 1st grade class, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, 2nd graders, 3rd graders. Welcome, everyone. Glad you're joining us. Hope we have fun here. So our first question for you, you might have this document that we shared about creating herbarium specimens. Our question for you all is, do you collect anything? Is there anything that you have collections of? It doesn't have to be a natural specimen. When I was a kid, I had a stamp collection for a long time. And eventually I actually gave it to someone because I was moving around a lot and I decided I was done with it, which is okay, I guess. A rock collection. Anyone here want to share?
Yeah, I'll share my buttons. I have a button collection that I keep in here. I'll show you some of my favorites. This is my giant R2-D2 button that I love.
Nice.
I got a Harry Potter button. from an artist, local artist made it. Let's see. I have a bee that says "Be kind," which is pretty appropriate for today. And yeah, those are some of my collections.
Any over here?
I collect keychains and souvenirs from when I travel or just go to new places. And I have bookmark collection. So how about you guys? What do you guys collect?
A lot of responses in the chat here. Shoes, marbles, Pokemon cards,
Nice.
stuffies. My son loves stuffies. Crystals, neat. I never knew they were squishmallows. That's awesome. Snails, fossils. That's so cool. So what are some reasons that you make collections? What do you like about your collection? Why do you do it? It's fun. It feels like an accomplishment. I agree. When you like put your whole collection together. One thing that I notice is that if you ask someone about their collection, you realize they know a lot about it, right? They know so much about that stuff. Nice. I collect Funko Pops so that when I grow up, I can get money. Nice, to make friends, right? Because you can talk about your collections and you can sort of share or exchange even. All these are really great reasons to make collections. Oh yeah, different games. That's awesome. So you can play, like you can kind of play with or engage with different pieces from your collection. I could think about shoes that way too, you know, like get to decide which ones to wear. Oh yeah, Legos. And build things with that kind of a collection. So collections are something that all of us do. People have always collected things, and collections are really valuable for all kinds of reasons. Today, what we're talking about are natural history collections. So these are collections that people have been making. Many of you mentioned natural history collections earlier. And so what we've got here is a set of different natural history collections. And we'll give you a couple of views of them. We've got 5 specimens. And we're going to ask you to guess what each of these 5 specimens is. So here's the first one. I hope you can hear us. You won't be able to hear this specimen. It's pretty quiet these days. Oh. Yeah, okay, so we got some guesses there for this specimen. And I think they're right. People are saying it's a duck. I think so too. Now we're moving on to our second set of specimens. What about these ones? Oh yeah, insects, bugs. That's right. One thing about those, or one thing you'll notice with these specimens, a lot of them, is they have labels on them, right? So you see underneath these insects, there are these little labels, Mantodea, right? That's the order of the mantises, like a praying mantis. I see those in my garden, usually in the later part of the summer every year. Right, so one thing you notice about natural history collections is they usually have information with them, like these labels, and maybe some of your collections do too. Okay, we'll go on to specimen number 3. Look at this one. That's right. Fish, a small fish. So a lot of scientific specimens we have to come up with creative ways to store them so that we can study them and so that they don't get all yucky, right? Think if I just had that fish and I just put it in a drawer. I was like, this is my fish collection. And I opened up a drawer full of dead fish. I don't think that would work very well. This fish is stored in ethanol, which is a solvent that also prevents any bacteria or fungi from getting in there and degrading it. If you turn that around, then we can see the label. You'll see there's a bunch of information on this label. It says Centrarchidae up top. That's actually the family of fishes that this species belongs to. Below that, it says in italic letters, Micropterus salmoides. Micropterus salmoides. That's the scientific name or Latin name of this fish individual. So Latin names are what scientists use to identify all kinds of life around them. And there are a lot of reasons why we use Latin names. One of them is because Latin is what's called a dead language. It's a language that no one uses necessarily for their daily speech or communication. And for that reason, if we use it incorrectly or if the styles change, it's sort of not a big deal. Also, because no one is using it regularly, it can be very much more stable than most languages. Languages change as people's preferences change. And so because no one speaks Latin on a daily basis, it's much more stable than other languages. Latin names or scientific names have two parts to them always. Micropterus, the first part there is the genus. That's a group of several species oftentimes. Salmoides is the species. So a scientific name has genus and species together. Right below that, you'll see the common name, largemouth bass. I've heard of that before, right? I didn't know the scientific name of a largemouth bass, but I did know its common name. So oftentimes we use common names too to describe animals and plants and insects and things. And common names are convenient because they tend to be names that people use. They're sort of frequently, they're often very descriptive. But oftentimes common names are different in different places in the world. So depending on where you are, you might have a different common name for the same species, or in different places, they might apply the same common name to different species. For instance, there are lots and lots of different plants that are called roses, but not all are true scientific roses. All right, so we'll see both Latin and common names as we go today. Why don't we move on to specimen number 4? What is this thing? This one gets tricky. Y'all wanna describe it? If you do, come on closer to the computer here to tell us. Do you think, how big do you think that is?
I mean, it's pretty big. About, let's see.
Is it bigger than like your arm?
It's probably about like half of an arm. I would say.
Do you think it's pretty heavy? Like,
it looks pretty heavy.
Looks pretty heavy. Yeah.
It's pretty heavy.
Yeah. So people are saying bone or vertebrae, spine bone of a whale. Ding, ding, ding. That's right. This is the vertebra of a big whale. And you see how a really large animal needs to have really large bones. And those big structures that are sticking off the sides of it, that's where all the muscles attach to it. Pretty cool. All right, now we're going to go to specimen number 5, right here. This specimen is a little bit different. I'm sure you can guess what this is, at least, you know, generally. Roots of a plant. What about this part? Could you zoom in more on the top part of it, Lynn? What do you think those parts are? Roots and branches, stems. It's definitely a plant specimen. Petals, that's right. Up top, those are flowers. So one convenient thing about plants is that they don't have backbones like whales do. And they're also made mostly of water. So they're easier for us to turn from 3-dimensional objects into 2-dimensional objects. And that's what we do when we want to save plants. So plant specimens are pressed and then they're mounted to a piece of paper. And like those other specimens I was showing you, they have labels attached to them. So there's the label for this one. This plant is from the plant family Onagraceae, the evening primrose family. And this happens to be Clarkia unguiculata. That's a strange sounding name, unguiculata. Well, that scientific name means elegant, and this is elegant Clarkia. So when was this one collected here? In the 21st of April in 2004. Right, so can we figure out how many years ago that was? '18. That's right. So plant specimens, once you press them and dry them out and mounted them on this piece of paper, they can last for quite a long time. This one's 18 years old, but we have some specimens in our herbarium that go back to the 1960s and even earlier. And people have continued to work with specimens that are much, much older than that, hundreds of years old, in fact. And so that's the importance of, that's one of the cool things about these specimens is that they're designed to last. Okay, so now that we've talked a little bit about collections and natural history collections, what we're going to do is shift to talking about how we make plant specimens. So what we've got here is a plant. This happens to be elegant Clarkia. Clarkia, the one that we showed you earlier, that specimen. So we'll show how we make that. And some of you, in fact, have some Clarkia in your kit, so you'll be making a specimen just like we are. So, right, plants and most things occur in life in a 3-dimensional form, but it's much easier to store things if they're in 2 dimensions, right? Like a piece of paper. So what we're going to do is make that change. So the way we do that is we use a plant press. So this is a plant press here. Plant presses are made of basically 2 kind of hard boards. This one's kind of fancy to allow greater airflow. In addition to that, most plant presses use cardboard, like that hard corrugated cardboard on the inside. And then the plants themselves are pressed between paper. At home, if you want to make a plant press, you can simply use a couple of books with paper like newspaper or something like that. and the weight of the books on top of your plant will smash it down. This plant plus has some straps that hold it together. We'll open those up. So if you want to make a plant specimen of your own sometime and press it, there are a couple of things to keep in mind when you're collecting plants. The first thing is that all of us need to have a kind of an ethic when we're collecting things out in nature. If we see something that's really pretty and special and we think, oh, I'd really like to have that, the first thing you want to do is make sure that it's not the only one that's around, right? If you take the only one that's left, then, then no one else could have the opportunity to see that or experience that. So it's really important to make sure if you do collect any kind of plants or anything that you're collecting from a big population of them. The other thing that's really important when you're collecting plants or anything like that is to make sure that you have permission. So if you're collecting plants like from your parents' garden, you might want to ask them before you do. If you want to go and collect some plants, from a neighbor's garden or something like that, you want to stop by and make sure that that's okay. Getting permission means that you can do it with confidence and feel good about it. So once you've collected your plant, like this little Clarkia here, then you can press it. We'll press ours in this press, but you could do it in a book or something like that. So here we go. We just need to open it up. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put it within the paper. On a plant specimen, we have a specific set, sort of size that the plant specimens are. And that way they all kind of are the same size and they fit nicely in the folders. You might make smaller specimens, and that's always okay. In this case, my plant is a little bit bigger than the specimen, so I'm just going to break off a little bit. Problem solved. Then what I want to do is just set it down on my paper. And you want to think about how it's kind of laid out, because this is going to be its permanent form. So I want to make sure, for instance, that the flowers are not like all smashed up on top of each other. They're kind of spread out. That's good. And then what I can do is just take the piece of paper over it and then put a piece of cardboard, wood, and straps. Just like that. Now your plant is basically slowly being converted to two-dimensional, and also slowly the water is coming out of it. And if you set that in the sun, the water can come out of it more quickly and it'll dry even faster. So as I mentioned earlier, you can do that with books as well. And that's the very simple way that we make plant specimens. So once you put it under there, you'll maybe have it in there for a few days or something. Then after a few days, you can check on it and see if it's all ready to go. So when you check on it, you just, in our case, I'm undoing the straps, but you can just take your book off. And so then through the magic, the same magic that they use in cooking shows, I'll show you what happens. So I take off the specimen and then open it up, and it's two-dimensional. And it's hard. And it's ready to be glued onto a piece of paper. So that's what happens. And that's what they do on cooking shows when they prep it and they put it in the oven and then they just take it out and it's all cooked all of a sudden. It's amazing. Okay. So you want to show us how to glue the specimen together?
Do you want to get inside?
Yep. now would be a great time for people to pass out the little individual specimens. Everyone should have some kind of pressed plant material. Here's a little piece of Clarkia. Along with that, you'll need an appropriate label because scientific specimens have labels. And you'll need a piece of paper. So we'll give people a couple of minutes here to make sure everyone's got what they need. Of course, you also need some glue. Believe it or not, Elmer's glue is the sort of scientific standard for plant specimens. Elmer's is a very simple glue that doesn't really interact chemically with our specimens, and so it lasts a really long time. And it's easy to find.
Teacher for him.
We can see videos of your classrooms. We can see people, teachers handing out specimens, it looks like.
All I
So if you decide to go to college and you come to Stan State, maybe you would end up being a bio major. And if you are, you might end up taking a course with me, which won't be all that long in the future, actually, even though it seems to you like that would be a million years from now. If you took my spring course, which is called Plant Taxonomy, you could come on field trips with us where we go and we visit different places all around here that have incredible plant diversity. We make plant collections at those places. So for instance, maybe you've been to any of the national wildlife refuges in the valley, like San Luis or San Joaquin. We also go to the foothills, places like Knights Ferry or Red Hills, Del Puerto Canyon, and other places. Our students have collected all over the Central Valley of California and the adjacent like foothills and Sierras. And our collection is a collection that captures the diversity of plants from all over those areas. How are people doing? Are people like mostly ready or almost ready to start gluing your specimens together? Still seeing a lot of activity in some rooms. One yes, but we'll give people a little bit more time, it sounds like. Oh, seeing a thumbs up from one class. lots of thumbs up. Nice. Oh, there's another one. Appreciate the thumbs up. We're real close to get going. Gracie, Chelsea, Whitney, Cash, lots of thumbs up. Fallon, this is Tovar. Awesome. Okay, well, what we're gonna do is just explain how to make a plant specimen using glue. Something many of you probably think you've got some experience with, which you probably do. Here we go. I guess we can show you the key steps, which are not too complicated. Our primary suggestion is to use less glue than you think you might need, because then it'll dry faster and it'll be less messy, which we all appreciate. So take it away, Laura.
Alrighty, so by now everyone should have a label, a specimen, and then a paper cutout where they will be gluing it. So first step, we're gonna go ahead and glue the label on one of the corners. And as Dr. Gardner said, we're gonna be using a small amount. You can do little dots of glue. So that it can dry faster and not be so wet. And also we want to use the label first in case that our specimen is a little bit larger. It is better for the specimen to overlap over the label. Alrighty. So once that is done, hope everyone's around there. We're gonna go ahead and use some of the glue and place it on the specimen directly. And again, trying to use small amounts to help with faster drying. You can put little dots on the leaves, the flowers. Oh. Pretty. Gonna go ahead and place it and then add a little bit of pressure so that the glue can stick. And there we go.
Awesome. Thanks, Laura. So with these specimens, if you want to put a little bit of weight on them or something to hold it down while it's drying, you could certainly like put some pencils or markers or something over them. You just want to make sure that you don't accidentally glue your pencil to your specimen. I hope that your specimens are looking good. We'll give people a couple of minutes to make some specimens. And then if any classes want to share pictures of their specimens, we'd really like to see how they're looking. So different classes have different plant specimens. We sent out different species from in our kits. So some people have Clarkias, other people have oaks, some people have California poppies. And some people have California redbuds or Western redbuds. Got a lot of really great looking specimens up there, everyone. Thanks for sharing. Looking good, nice oak leaf there. Awesome job, everyone. Plant specimens work well for a lot of different things. You can use it as artwork. You could laminate them and use them as like a bookmark. You can do anything you want. So this is maybe this is your first plant specimen. These were all collected on the Trans-California pathway of the Stan State campus. That's a cool place to visit if you want to learn more about native plants. So cool. I love to see all these specimens, everyone. Great job. Some really cool specimens, everyone. Thank you for sharing. While you're maybe finishing up your specimen, then what I'll do is I'll explain a little bit about how we use them as scientists. So I mentioned earlier, and we were showing you these other collections, how they have labels on them. The labels are actually really important for us as scientists because the labels give us a lot of other information about that specimen. On our plant collections, you'll see the label, not only does it have information about what the plant is, so yours have the family and they have the scientific name and also the common name. They also have information about where that plant was collected. So it says location, Trans-California Pathway, Stanislaus State, Turlock, California, 95382, right? So that location tells you where that plant was found. In addition to that, plant specimens always have a collection date. And the date is really important because then you know what that plant was doing at that time of year. So a lot of the specimens we sent have flowers on them. That tells you they're flowering this time of year. Others didn't. They just have leaves, and that's other information. So with that label information, we can do so much as scientists. And I wanted to explain a little bit about that to you. So one of the coolest things about living in the world that we live in is that with the internet, we're able to share information across huge spaces and with all kinds of different people. And so what I'm going to show to you is how we can share information about our plant specimens. So what I've just shared my screen and I'm showing this website, which is called CCH2, Specimen Data from the Consortium of California Herbaria. So what is this? This is a group of herbaria just like ours from all across California. And what we've done is we've actually entered all the data from all the labels in our specimens into a big internet database. And that's what this is. That database allows us to basically share information about what plant specimens we have with each other and allows people to study different plants. So I'll show an example from Elegant Clarkia, that plant that we've been talking about a little bit. So I'll show you here first that this CCH2 consortium includes all these different organizations. So, the California Academy of Sciences, the California Department of Parks and Recreation, California State University, San Bernardino, Joshua Tree National Park Herbarium. We're down here, SHTC, the CSU Stanislaus Herbarium. So what I'm going to do is deselect everything and just select our herbarium and hit search. Now I'm going to type in that plant species, Clarkia unguiculata. And conveniently, it auto-fills so that I don't have to remember how to spell that. List display. Now, what we can see here is that in our herbarium, we have 18 samples of this Clarkia species. And these are all these samples collected in different years. So here's one that was collected in 1966. And right after that, one collected in 2017. One cool thing about our specimens is because we put that location information in there, where they were collected, we can make maps. And so when I click on the maps button, I can see where all of our Clarkia, our elegant Clarkia specimens have been collected from. So here's the map of our specimens that are in our herbarium. And you can see that we've collected it from areas in the Central Valley and also in the foothills. So this is like Mariposa up here. This is like Knight's Ferry. And here's Turlock, where we are. But the really cool thing about being able to share all of our data together is that we can generate a map of the whole distribution of this species. So the way that I do that is to go back and select all of the collections. I can't see it. Can you see that? No, I lost my share again. Sorry. Now you can see, I think. Yeah. So rather than just selecting our collection, I'm going to select all of them and search again. And what you can see is that when you include all the collections of this plant from all over California, what you see is there are 1,707 of them. So that's the power of shared research. And they come from all these different institutions. So as you scroll through, you see all these different collections. And when I make a map, I can see exactly where the species occurs. Because there are 1,700 specimens to map, it takes a little bit longer. So what you can see is that elegant Clarkia is very common in the coast ranges of California, especially around San Francisco Bay and south. In addition to that, it's quite common in the foothills of the Sierra Nevada and the transverse range that goes over the north side of the LA basin. What you also can see, though, is that there are relatively few collections of it from the Central Valley. So it seems to be less common there. And that it doesn't really go much north. We're not, some of these collections that are outside of the normal distribution, maybe they were like planted there by someone, for instance. But what this shows is that by grouping together all of our collections and sharing information about them, we can generate a lot more information about what we're seeing. I don't know why it just zoomed back out there. So is there any other plant from California that people might want me to sort of look at its distribution. The California poppy or wild sunflowers. Okay, poppies again, right. So what we can do is go back to our search criteria and we'll put that in. California poppy has a kind of a hard to spell scientific name. It's called Escholzia. Escholzia, there it is. And these are all the different species of Escholzia here. And California poppy is Escholzia californica. And I will create a list display here. And I think what we're going to see is that California poppy has been very well collected. Right, so right now it's showing 4,952 records. So the last one was 1,700. This is 4,952. And now we're going to do the map. And you thought that one took a while. This one might take a lot longer, but we'll see. Here they come. All right, so a couple of, while we're waiting for this one to populate, and then I'll talk about it, also tulip and rhododendron have been suggested. So tulip is actually not native to California, but there may be some tulips that have been collected that were brought here, that were introduced to this state. Rhododendron, I think if you look in Northern California, you can find that natively. I think there are some species on the Pacific Northwest. So here's this map of poppies. And what you see is that California poppy lives predominantly in the western part of North America, you know, mostly California, but it also goes up to Oregon and Washington. It goes east into Arizona and New Mexico and south down into Mexico. We also see some collections of California poppy from other places in the world, right? These are probably individuals that were brought there and planted there as garden plants. California poppy is actually a popular garden plant around the world. And other possibilities is that, frankly, like for instance, this one, that could be a data entry error. So for instance, maybe someone entered the latitude or longitude incorrectly, and that's what put it out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. We've got other questions here in the chat. Maple trees. We have several species of maples in California that one could look up here. And also, are roses native to California? We do have a few native species of roses, including Rosa californica. I'm seeing that it's, I'm seeing a question about moving the map. We can zoom in, but it will take some time because that's a lot of specimens. I see that it's 9:56, so some people may need to move on to other things. Thanks for joining us. I hope you had fun and I hope you enjoy your plant specimen. Sorry if the map isn't working quite to your liking. If you want to try this out more, go to cch2.org. cch2.org. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for joining us for this activity. Science Week would not be possible without you and the dedication of our faculty, students, and staff here at Stan State.
We had a blast and we hope you had as well. And thank you for joining us all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much for watching. Please follow us on social media to find more about our upcoming events.